Welcome to another Marketing, Media and Money show. I am Thebe Ikalafeng and I'm with my good friend here,
Gordon Muller. The advertising industry these days is dominated by global agency networks. And today we're going to interrogate whether globalization creates highways to successful advertising in Africa or whether it just sets up a whole bunch of roadblocks. So Thebe, this month in South Africa is all about state capture, and today we're going to be talking about agency capture. I mean, I know you've got pretty strong views about this, and you blame me for most of it. I mean,
because you used to be captured as well.
I used to be captured,
as part of a global agency.
Because
you know my view, even though I used to work for a global company, I was pretty much resistant to this agency capture business.
Absolutely.
I just used to drive.
And why did I escape? I escaped the day I realized that the accuracy of my reporting was more important than the outcome of the advertising in the marketplace. And that seemed to me to be a warning sign that things were not what they should be.
But the one thing that we do know for certain is there are rumblings in the globalization space. Because if you look at banks exiting Africa, selling down, and it's not just in banking, but it's really across many other industries where people are exiting the continent, which creates an opportunity for local, which should have been there in the first place.
What's important and what's really shifted is the fact that we've given consumers control over part of the exchange. In the old days, if you gave me $1 million, I'll give you $1 million worth of ad pressure and you'll get a result because the world was growing at a reasonable rate. Now the economy is stable and or shrinking, which means that if you give me $1 million, I'll buy you $1 million
that's just South
worth of
Africa,
exposure.
by the way. The rest of the continent
on
fire.
Not necessarily. I'm afraid you're not right.
Am I reading the wrong?
If you speak to the local media owners who are particularly the out-of-home industry, they're really struggling. So the problem is, if the consumers don't like my campaign, they will generate $10 million worth of negative exposure. So the imperative on getting the campaign right at a consumer level is more than it's ever been. You've got to get people to like your campaign, to respond positively, because if they don't like it, they will respond negatively and your brand will go backwards. That's the problem.
But what I like about today, we've got people who can speak to this because they've been in the industry. They're in the industry, they used to be linked to global networks, and some of them are de-linked from the global network. So you and I can talk, we're but old heads at this. So let's talk to people who are actually running this today.
We're going to do that today. We're going to pose some questions, and one of them hopefully we'll get to today, but perhaps next month, is to look at the issue of upskilling. Because one of the advantages that the global agencies do have is that they tend to train their people, they expose them to global trends, and the smaller agencies don't get time. So we need to talk about transformation, upskilling and engagement.
But nobody can train them to be African like the Africans themselves.
100%.
Let's get the show on the road.
Absolutely. Joining us in studio today are Odette van der Haar, CEO of the Advertising and Communication Association of South Africa.
And Clara, who's the Regional Director, East and Southern Africa for EducationUSA. She's also former Marketing Director for McDonald's in South Africa. And from Lagos, Lolu Akinwunmi, who is the Group CEO, Prima, Garnet, Africa, Nigeria. But I think I want to get going right away with this conversation, and I'll start with you. Odette. Odette, I've been listening in the industry here in South Africa. There are a lot of pitches going on from a lot of South African companies which are international. And I understand many of these companies are now looking for the pitches to be done by network agencies which belong to a network. This surely cannot be good for the industry, for the young guy whom you at your ACA school are educating and molding, and is going to start their own agency. This is not good for them. They have no chance of competing.
I think it's not that they have no chance of competing. What we often find is that when there's a complicated pitch structure, like a group agency for Pan-African continent, we find that there's still room, depending on how the marketing budget is constructed, for smaller local agencies. Remember, we still have things like transformation charters that sit across various industries, and stuff like supply development and local procurement still play a major factor. So what I've been seeing in the pitches that I've been mediating is that we structure it so that we can have large agency networks, mainly for the footprint into Africa and for the experience, for integration of communications campaigns. And then locally, for the production of the work, there's lots of room to include the smaller guys and local companies and to give them a slice of the pie.
Production, anybody can produce anything. I care mostly about the creative, the idea, because I would have thought the whole idea of creating and educating creative talent here is to be able to come up with people who understand this market, who come from here. But now you are closing them out and telling them that WPP or any of these other international agencies are the only ones who can create stuff.
Not true. And in fact, Gordon and I had a long conversation just before the show in the holding room about this. And I said, often the ad agencies or the ad industry is brought to account in terms of transformation and local sector development, but you need to remember that we are agents of the client. So my question then to you is, why do we not have a client on this panel? Why do we not ask a client, what are you doing to ensure that you procure, even if it's 80% from a global multinational and 20% from a local company? We cannot procure for ourselves. We can only showcase ourselves as agencies, we can show our creative skill, but more often than not a client says, I want to go with the safe choice. In the current economic environment, clients are looking for a safe bet. I don't buy that argument because I still am very big on skills development, but I'm just telling you that it's a complicated answer and it doesn't reside solely with the ad agencies. I think clients have to take accountability for their contribution to the complexity of this.
I want to pick that up with Clara, because Clara, you are intimately involved with education and you've got a spectacular track record of involvement on global accounts with major agencies and major advertisers like McDonald's. Is part of the problem not the size of the agency, but the fact that these days one inherits a global campaign and most of the work being done by agencies is little more than implementation?
Yeah, I agree, and I'm like old school, but I think
sounds good to me. You're not going to get any complaints here.
Got a lot of old schools here. Look how we all grey now.
I think one of the challenges for your global networks is they really cannot lock into the country or the community as well as a local agency. In the old days, what we would do is we had the safe bet, the global agency, but we would also invite smaller agencies in to pitch, because a lot of times the kernel of an idea is going to be with your smaller agencies. In the larger agencies, and having worked for one for years, sometimes it's hard for good ideas to come out because of the structure of these world agencies. There are layers and layers and layers and layers of people that are in charge of getting work out the door. And what you'll find with your smaller local agencies is that you can sit around the table like this, and you can actually talk to the people who are doing the work. You can talk to the person who is running the agency. So, yeah.
And you can talk presumably to the consumers, because you're in the market, you're engaged with them on a day-to-day basis, you speak the language, you understand the cultural nuance.
The most important thing for me, though, is understanding the business, whether you're big or small. Understanding the business, having a pulse on the consumer, not only the client's business, but the competitor's business, so that you can produce better work.
But I mean, we right now, with you, Odette, we looked at the South African perspective, and Clara, I'm glad Clara's here because she gave us a client perspective that you're looking for, though she's not there anymore, but certainly she comes from that space. But I wonder, Lolu, how it is in Nigeria, because Lolu used to be part of a global agency, Ogilvy, a global networked agency, and now he's part of an independent agency. I wonder how it works actually in Nigeria. Lolu, do you find in Nigeria as well that you have the same challenges that we're talking about here? That there's a big battle between the local agencies and the networked agencies?
Yeah, certainly, and of course it will depend on the account involved. If you're talking of a Coca-Cola, if you're talking of a GSK, if you're talking of a Nestle, all of them have literally been imported into Nigeria, and they come with certain standards. They come with the lead agency somewhere in London, New York, or Johannesburg. And so it's something that the local affiliate has to live with. But over many years, we have been advocating that sometimes, not sometimes, quite a few times, a lot of the wholesale ideas don't work, especially in a very large, very cultural environment like Nigeria, where you've got at least 250 different dialects, where you've got 170 million people. Quite a lot of times the big message comes in, and by the time you take it down, it gets diluted, it doesn't make any sense. These are some of the issues that we've had to contend with, especially when you're affiliated to a big network like Ogilvy or Gray or any of those ones there. It doesn't give the local agency the ability to input much, especially into critical campaigns.
Lolu, we're going to come back to you after the break, and I'll just chat a little bit more about the Nigerian environment and also just locally how we're dealing with this and with Clara as well. We're back after the break.